Welcome, everybody, to the Base Strength Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Bromley. Thank you for joining me today. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you all to a friend of mine, competitive arm wrestler, ranked number 3 in the United States, Mr. Derek Smith, coming to you from Yucaipa, California.
Yes.
A funny story. I actually knew Derek before he became an arm wrestling celebrity. We worked together at a bar, a rather gutter bar in downtown Redlands for a couple of years. And you have been a staple there for quite a while. Are you still working at the Boiler Room?
No, I stopped about a year ago or so.
Okay.
I moved on to greener pastures at the library up the street.
Derek's into books.
Yeah.
Derek likes to read, so he's working at the library.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool, man. You can't tell by his baby face, but Derek is a human giant. What are you? You're 6'8"?
Yeah. I'm 6'8", about 340, 345 right now, or so. Around competition time, I'm trying to get up. I was up to like 370 my last couple big matches, or like 365. So I'll probably start getting bigger again. I get some stuff coming up, but it's been nice, kind of just being light. The sleep apnea is kind of getting controlled a little bit, as I'm getting lighter, which is nice. But yeah,
we need you alive.
What's that?
We need you alive.
I know, dude. I'm an idiot. But I'm trying to get a CPAP machine currently. I'm trying to work on that.
That's good. As long as you have somebody next to you to like elbow you when you start choking in the middle of the night. I get the same thing. I'm not as heavy as you are, but then again, I've been described as a manlet. And I'm 5'10", that's average height, but everyone describes me, I might as well be 5 foot flat. But when I get over like 260, it's all my neck and my face.
Yeah.
And I can't. If I fall asleep on my back, I'll start getting like night terrors, start shaking and choking. But it's like, if you want to be a competitive strength athlete, I swear, it's like you need a CPAP. You need something to breathe for you, because we're elite athletes. We have to have something breathe for us when we sleep. And when I knew you, most of the time I knew you were about 300 pounds, and you were big back then. And then right before I left, I think one of the last times I saw you, it's probably a year ago or so, you were about 350, and you ballooned up quite a bit. You feel your pulling has improved quite a bit in that time as you kind of gained weight and filled out your frame?
Yeah. I mean, I've been in the sport about 12 years now, and like, I'm such I'm so thirsty for knowledge in arm wrestling. I love arm wrestling so much that I've like traveled around the world to Turkey and Dubai. I've gone everywhere, Malaysia, and all like in search of just learning more about the sport and the inner workings of it, and learning from top people in the world, just to see how they see it and stuff like that. And so I had all this knowledge, right? Just had to kind of catch up with the strength, so I could apply a lot of it. I mean, and I've been teaching arm wrestling my team's been around for like 9 years. It's just having the strength to apply it is something different. It's a different conversation. So finally, in the last couple of years, it's all kind of started coming together with the work schedule clearing up. I'm only working 3 days a week, so I got 4 days a week to sleep and eat and train, and the rest and everything that comes with that. So yeah, finally I started getting that horsepower built in via programming and all whatnots, and then so the strength is coming into play. So now it's coming together.
The way you describe that, like having this database of knowledge, because you spent so much time on the table. I've been to a couple of your practices a long time ago, but seeing how much you focus on maneuvering, how much you focus on positioning, learning skills, how to get into different positions. And a lot of all that shit ended up in my gym, because like Leo would bring all the specialty exercise. So it looked like a BDSM room. There was this whole like cabinet filled with, you're like, where does this go in your ass? Like, what is this? You get all of these specific little attachments that go into the cable machine that hug your wrist a different way, your fingers a different way. And I was really blown away. And I think a lot of people would not expect that it gets that meticulous and that specific. But then to have all of that in your back pocket, and then now have like horsepower to go behind it. I mean, that had to have been like a different world. Did you was it just kind of grinding away, or did you kind of feel like a moment in time where you had this like breakthrough moment and it was kind of a different game?
I feel like it's such a complicated sport. It can be very complicated, or you can kind of simplify it, but in terms of like the body and the hand and wrist, like there's so many different ways it can maneuver, and so many different muscles and joints and tendons and things in there that it gets pretty complicated. But once you once you learn how to like isolate and like target certain things, understand what's going on in an arm wrestling match in any given moment, what muscles are being used and how they're being targeted and stuff, and what the counter to do, to that guy using those muscles. Okay, I know I need to increase my height. I need to regrip. I need to do this and that in this moment. So you start learning all this stuff. And then over time, you're always thinking about all these complicated things. And over time, you start realizing the same few things popping up that are the most important in like every situation, like this, and this. So you simplify that and you start focusing on the important things, the common denominators, they're always just showing up. And once I started doing that and doubling down on those and really like making this complicated thing more and more simple in my brain, but what I need to focus on, it started coming together a lot easier. Like height, for example, like height in a match, controlling the top knuckle. So we're both start arm wrestling, but my hand gets up here and your hand's below me. I'm now above you and I'm controlling everything below, right? So fighting for that in a match, because they start you dead even. So then you have to fight for that and smaller things like that. But once you start getting that and then amplifying the strength to be able to control that part, then everything, doors just open,
And I remember you had kind of a background as a gamer.
Yeah.
I remember many a strategy session over Clash of Clans working at the Boiler Room. Do you feel like that kind of helped having the same type of like kind of gamer mind or like strategic mind when it came to putting all that together?
I don't know how much the exact gaming gave into it, because before that I was a college basketball player, and I was super obsessive with basketball and the same thing, research and homework and everything. And I picked up a ball like my junior year for the first time ever basketball. By the time I was a senior, I was the leading scorer in the high school team. I never played my whole life, and like because I get really, really obsessed on whatever I'm doing. So quickly, in like 2 years or 3 years, I became one of the top guys in the area. So like same thing with gaming. I saturated myself into it, got obsessed, and I got really good at it. It went to pretty good levels. But I think that's the biggest carryover that I've seen specifically from gaming, though. I mean, understanding how sponsorships work, understanding how traveling works. I traveled my ass off for gaming. Those are more things I took away from it rather than a competitive mindset. I've always been competitive, especially when I get into something. So I'm not sure specifically how much gaming went to arm wrestling. But honestly, I wouldn't be an arm wrestler if it weren't for gaming, because that's where I first found it, was at a gaming tournament.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. There was a guy that beat me that was a professional arm wrestler. He was a professional video game player and a professional arm wrestler.
Wow.
He beat me at some tournament, and I said, this is it. That's what I'm doing.
That's crazy. You wouldn't have expected those two worlds to collide. From my end of things, like a lot of the personality types that end up in these kind of almost like rec league strength sports people get into when they're a little bit older. It's not what most people would expect. I think the average person would expect a different type of like meathead, but you get a lot of like gamers, a good example. You get a lot of nerds. You get a lot of people who may not have been the cool kids in high school.
Yeah.
But so the obsession, the compulsion seems to be the common factor. You just like to get in, pick things apart, figure out what makes them tick, and then that applies to a sport like arm wrestling, which is so complex and strategic. What do you think was like the biggest hurdle to get over when you really started competing and taking it seriously?
I think like for me, because I was so obsessed on the technical aspects of it and that part, that like in getting strong for me, what was the biggest thing, and understanding what gets me strong and when I feel strong and how and why, and just kind of seeking that out. Because I feel like I've done all my research and I've learned from so many people how they got strong in arm wrestling. And there's so many different paths to the promised land of top elite level strength, that like you could have the top best guys in the world completely training completely opposite. And they made it to this top level, and you're like, well, which is the right way? And so eventually you kind of find what works for you, it seems like, and what you believe in, and then throw yourself at that. So the passage of trying to find how to get strong in arm wrestling for me was probably the biggest hurdle for sure.
Did you have any particular role models that kind of shaped how you train, or do you feel like you kind of took from everybody and found your own way?
Yeah, mostly taken from everybody. I mean, you start with the big famous guys, that everybody knows of, like Devin Larratt and John Berzane, guys that everybody talks about. But then you start finding like everybody focuses on the super heavyweights, and then there's lightweight guys that were never in the spotlight because they were just lighter, but their track record's insane. They've won like everything a million times over. They're like gods of arm wrestling in their own right, just not as known because they're light. Because light guys never get attention. So so I go learn from them and stuff like that. And but yeah, not one specific, but more drawing from everybody as best I could.
Absolutely. Since I've last seen you, I mean, you jumped so many spots. I remember when you were starting to count your ranking in California. I want to say a few years back, what were you like? Were you like 5th or 7th or something in California?
The California rankings has always been like a little sloppy. No one was really putting a lot of work in keeping it up. But there was the guy that was number 1 in California before I took it was had been known as the number 1 guy for like 15 years or so, and he's only like 240 pounds, 250 pounds, but he was just pretty much widely regarded as the number 1 guy, and he was in Northern California. So I never saw him. Like I would go to local tournaments and stuff, and he never really came down, and he was kind of on a break for a long time, so I never really got to test myself with him. I arm wrestled him one time, like my second tournament in my life. I arm wrestled him one time there, and that was it. And so I was stuck in Southern California, and there was a few guys down here that would beat me for a long time, like 3 or 4 guys I just couldn't beat. So yeah, probably around 5th, 6th for the most better part of my career, I guess you'd say. And then and then started taking that down.
Now you've bumped up. Now you're 3rd. You told me that. I was like, okay, Derek's on his way. I knew you were getting better. I knew you'd been putting in a lot more work, but I saw you were 3rd, and you said you're 3rd in the US behind Chafee and sorry, which one?
Chafee and Michael Todd.
Michael Todd.
States, yeah.
Okay.
Michael Todd's number 1 in the United States, and then Dave Chafee, and then they had me ranked as a super heavyweight.
Okay. How does that hold up? I know there's some weird stuff with the weight classes. Generally, bigger guys do better. Are there some guys in the lighter ranks that are like kind of up there with some of the best around right now?
Yeah. So John Brzezink's back in the mix. He's training again. He's competing again. Yeah. So he got his old ass up off the couch and decided to dust it off and start competing. And he's beating everybody for the most part.
Really?
He worked his way up to having a match with Devin Larratt, and then Devin beat him. But besides that, John hasn't lost to anybody. He's been killing everybody. So
you showed me, or I saw somewhere you had posted a video, I think on your Instagram. You posted a video, and I recognized Ron Bath. Mm-hmm. And I think it was from one of the older documentaries, 10 or 12 years ago. I want to say the one with Travis. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing Ron Bath. I remember seeing him in contests. That was a big name. He was a little long in the tooth back then. So It's interesting. And I know John Brzenk, he's got to be pushing 60, seeing his mid 50s.
Yeah, somewhere like mid 50s.
Okay. How do you kind of see age and like the maturation process? Because I've seen some guys hang out, stay pretty late in life, stay competitive. Do you tend to just kind of typically retain the skill, or do you have to have a certain amount of like youth on your side to be able to have the horsepower?
I don't like internally. I mean, no one has any rock solid answer on what's going on internally inside their arms and stuff like that. I mean, people say, the tendons over 40. Well, John Brzezink's been arm wrestling his entire life, so those things are like ropes mixed with, the know-how. And then there's just like little dash of youthful supplements, and then suddenly, they're back on top, and so they can be. That's one thing about the sport is that you can stay in it a super long time at a really high level. It's just like a lot of times in general, when I come across an arm wrestler who's been arm wrestling like 40 years, not saying the top level guys, but on more of a local scale, when you come across a guy, his hand's super concrete and he's 50 years old, you're like, oh man, this guy's just gonna be rough. Generally, the big muscles are behind. Generally, the big chest and bicep and atrophied over the years and stuff like that. But they have these crazy tendons. They're super connected and tight. You're like, oh my God, it feels like concrete. But generally, when I would arm wrestle them, I would always just shoot onto their big muscles. I was like, well, let's see how good that bicep is, or something like that. And I would just shoot onto that. Like, how much can you curl right now at 60 years old? Type of thing. And I would do okay there. But if you try to get in any kind of slow hand fight where you're trying to maneuver fingers and just tendony stuff, like they're crazy strong at it. And so, yeah, if you take those guys, then you also suddenly put in a bunch of horsepower and they're feeling great again. I mean, things are, because it's not the arm wrestling isn't a bunch of huge open movements where, joints are cracking and snapping. I mean, there's a pretty solidified, and their bones are solidified into that, And so, I think it allows you to do it at a pretty high level for a long time. Now that might be changing as the sport changes. And as we get crazier athletes that are more and more capable, that might be changing. But for now, yeah, those guys, they can hang for a long time.
And I wanted to actually transition that's a good segue, because we were talking about the older guys, the old guard. And then now there's always people, it feels like, that are trying to get in. And that's what I'm kind of interested to have your take on, given the people that got strong over here or got notoriety over here, and then they kind of slide into arm wrestling. Do you feel like there is a lot of room for the sport to grow as far as like talent or freakishness? Do you feel like any of these new guys are contributing to that? Do you feel like a lot of the people coming in think that they're going to be punching down, and because they're strong, they're going to like run away with it? Like if I went into like a middle school dodgeball game, I'd just roll over people and then, you know, they get a rude awakening. Like what's your take on like the new influx of
you're talking about Larry Wheels? So yeah, I mean, those guys getting into it, the thing about arm wrestling, one is the most important thing generally in winning an arm wrestling contest is having a ton of hand and wrist control. How much you bench or overhead press or squat, like you're not going to have a ton of hand and wrist control, especially in the specific arm wrestling facets of it, right? You're not going to have a ton of pronation and wrist flexion at the same time. Like who works that? So that's the biggest catch up. Like Larry, right off, for example, right? I'll use Larry Wheels for example, maybe pound for pound, one of the strongest humans on the planet, right? And so he had a ton of stuff that's crazy strong, right? Chest and shoulders and biceps, everything's wildly strong, but putting it all together and getting it all to your fingertips, because you have all that strength, but you got to somehow get it here at some point. All that strength has come to your hand. And so that's the thing that takes time. Physically, that's the thing that takes time. And then there's also learning how to arm wrestle. There's also building up your joints and your connective tissue, especially your elbow, because it takes a toll. And those things can take a year. So I think, honestly, take Brian Shaw, for instance. He's mentioned maybe getting arm wrestling once he's done with strongman or something like that. I can't see him becoming a serious threat on like a elite level like he is in strongman in arm wrestling for, I don't know, fastest would be 3 to 4 years of solid arm wrestling training, like hardcore arm wrestling, like dedicating as he is to a strongman, but to arm wrestling like that, to become an elite level guy. Because our top guys they're crazy. They're like a Brian Shaw, but just have been arm wrestling since they were 7. You know, like they're no slouches, and it's just built for arm wrestling.
And I relate to a lot of the misconceptions out there because I mean I experienced that firsthand. Like, you know, the couple of times, I think there were 3 weeks where I just like degenerated over, like there was a first practice and I felt like kind of good, and the second practice and I'm like, man, my arm really hurts. Then the third practice, I remember driving home like this because my arm was throbbing, and I was serving at the time, and I remember like my hand was shaking as I was like trying to write down an order, and it really takes you by surprise. Not just what the demands of the sport are, like you said, I learned so much just about connective tissues, just from those couple of sessions, and then from like talking to you and Leo over the years. And I take that forward and applied it to like the shit I was dealing with afterwards. It's like, oh, well, if you're having chronic tendinopathy, like how do you get tendons to thicken out? How do you make yourself more resilient? Thicker they are, the stronger potentially you can be, because you get a lot of guys with brittle tendons and their body constantly has a governor off. But then there's the aspect, and I think a lot of people get taken by surprise that you're right. Like it doesn't directly have a lot to do with your shoulder, arm, bicep. It's you're going against this like metal claw, and it's like all this volleying for position. And there's so much specificity. Even in strongman, we get into this when we're dealing with grip. Like I have a very competitive, like farmer's. I beat you in the farmer's hold. You remember that? I gotta bring that up. Yeah.
Wait, we did a farmer's hold against each other.
The fat grips. You don't remember that? The fat grip farmer hold. You think I'm making that up?
No, you probably did.
There's got to be a video somewhere. I'm going to dig it up. It was like a 200-pound farmer hold for times for like a pair of clamps or something. It was one of the CrossFit gyms. Anyways, I beat you by like 3. It was like a ridiculously lightweight, and it went like a minute and a half. But the difference is like you have generally strong hands, but like I train specifically for that one thing, right? So, and I'm really competitive there. But that has nothing to do with my fingers. Certainly doesn't have anything to do with my wrist. You were talking about pronation. Like I can't do that for shit. And you look at somebody like Brian Shaw, it's like, okay, he's really strong. He has a fat hand. He might have a good frame, but it's like, is he going to be able to like do this maneuver or like turn people over? And on top of that, like, it's almost worrisome when you're that strong, but your tendons are that far behind. Like talk about the injury factor with guys like him or Larry Wheels, Scott Mendelson, like the really strong guys you've seen come in. What have you observed there?
Yeah, it's just like, especially when they're older. I mean, I always get worried when I have a big older guy come in, like big muscular older guy come in, because I feel like they're at the highest level of risk in terms of the arm, the joints, the bones, the tendon and connective tissue. It hasn't been up to par. They have all this horsepower behind it, and they're big, and so they're going to be kind of outside their frame, which is more dangerous in general. It's hard for them to get tight into a safer spot. So I feel like they're at the highest risk of hurting themselves. And hopefully, I mean, they take it serious and they maintain safety. It's really easy to not hurt yourself if you pay attention to some stuff. But yeah, in terms of like just physical capacity to like handle the load and stuff required for arm wrestling, I mean, they have to take it easy. I mean, the best any new big guy I have in practice, especially in that scenario, like get all pride out the window. We're just going to work through things over time, and we'll build it up slowly while we feel more and more comfortable. I mean, thank God Larry hasn't had more, arm wrestling injuries, right? Most of his injuries are all from crazy powerlifting and wild stunts. Not I don't think he's been injured on the table seriously yet. So it just comes from having a good coach and having someone understand putting you in the right positions. But they're definitely at a higher level, especially if they're running gear and stuff like that, and just getting so strong. Because a lot of guys get into the sport at a mediocre strength level, and they're like, I want to be good at this, and start blasting some kind of PED, get all crazy huge, and then tell them it's like we're so based off connective tissue and small connections that like when you suddenly put a dragster engine in a go-kart frame, things aren't going to start popping and jumping off the bone and not doing what they're supposed to do.
All the injuries that I see, I know for a fact did not. Okay, like if I count, because you're in a sport that it's hard to gauge. It's hard to gauge what the really good people 50 years ago would have done today, right? Because it's combat. It's you against them. You can guess, but it's not objective. It's not numerical. Like we have the benefit of knowing where the records have moved. Like, 1,000 pounds today was 1,000 pounds in the 70s. It's not different. The numbers today, I mean, they've ticked forward, but they're not dramatically different. But the types of injuries that you see, the type of just weird, crazy shit that you see from people is like next level. It's like not uncommon it was one thing for biceps to go in strongman because it gets so exposed, but you have like quad tendons popping off. You have these huge like tendon ruptures from people benching at a rate that I don't think ever used to happen before from strong people. And these are movements that you can get stacked correctly. You can get in the optimal position. You can practice it's predictable. Nothing's different. It's not dynamic. It's the same exact thing every time. And the thing that I can't help but like internalizing, I cringe every time I watch an arm wrestling match. It's the chaos. It's every time somebody hits to the side, the little subtle jerking. Like I remember you just going over to basic position. You talk about having somebody keep you in position. It's like you get drifted away a little bit, right? You look away from your hand and you just think about the torque that's going on in your upper arm.
Yeah.
It just seems like you mix those two things together, right? The brittleness of the tendons, the horsepower from the drugs, and a lot of inexperience. And all of a sudden, like, bam, you're looking at arm breaks and like give people some insight into like the injury rates. I remember you did that amateur arm wrestling thing at Tilted Kill. You're really concerned about injuries. Like how prevalent is injury in the sport from that type of scenario from people that don't really know what they're doing?
I tell everybody I know that are my non-arm wrestling friends, like, just don't arm wrestle. Don't arm wrestle unless you come to my practice and I show you how to do it. It's not worth it. And the risk of you breaking your arm, it's so easy to break your arm if you don't know what you're doing that like, it's crazy. Like, I'm not trying to put a blemish in the sport and tell people not to enjoy arm wrestling. I'm just saying, do a little research on what you're doing and how the pressures work, because the biggest, most common injury probably in arm wrestling is still a general break. It's a spiral fracture in the middle of your humerus right here, where the bottom part of my arm down here goes this way, the top part goes this way, and it just snaps in half right here in the middle. That's the one you see on all the, the movies and the clips and all that stuff, and people just arm snaps in half. It's always right there. But it's super easy to break your arm, but it's super easy to not break your arm. Like I've had a team for 9 years. I've trained hundreds and hundreds of people that have come through there, and I've never had an arm break in 9 years on my team. Nobody ever has broken their arm ever. And we just go over basic safety tips at the beginning. But if you've never learned any of that stuff, you're just like, hey, friend at a gym, and we both don't know what we're doing. Let's just go as hard as we can in an angle that our body's not meant to go in, and we'll just see who pins who using crazy muscles that we shouldn't be using. Yeah. It's a recipe for disaster.
It's just practicing. It's a basic amount of humility, right? With just understanding how far away. It's like, I feel like a lot of people don't take a lot of this stuff seriously when they're on the outside. It feels like it's easy to get into, maybe that it's attainable, and that's kind of why they can pursue it. When it's like, you have to treat it like any other combat sport. Like, hey, go to jujitsu, go learn how to do kickboxing or something. But don't like just go do it in the street, like without knowing what the fuck you're doing against somebody who's really good. Cause you have to do it the right way. You have to give it the respect it deserves. And you do have a crew it seems very open, right? It's like anybody can come in at any time, no matter how green they are, no matter what. Have you ever had exposure to people that came in that you either had to kind of turn away, or you were kind of like anybody coming in, either overly cocky, unrealistic expectations, anything like that?
Well, thank God I'm there at the team. So nobody's ever came in off the street to beat me. So that's good. So it's nice because that we've had guys like that. I've had a few guys come through like, hey, they'll message me something I've never lost. I'll come through and beat your whole team and like, what's up? And I'll be like, by all means, come on down, buddy. And I'll send them the address or whatever. And I'll set him up with a couple, guy or two, I'll kind of sit back and watch what level he's at and what he's trying to do and stuff. And I'll give him tips on safety because obviously I still don't want him to hurt himself. And then eventually I'll be like, okay, well, you ready? Like, and I'll be like, you ready? We'll arm wrestle. And I don't even try to pin the guy. I'll just be like, all right, I started up. And then he'll just go and I'll be like, and he'll just, you see it. There's always like a moment where it snaps in their eye, like, what is going on? Like, this isn't even real. Like, I'm just smiling, like, you're doing really good. Like, you're strong. Like, good job. But it generally those people have so much pride that after they take a few L's at the first practice, they're just like, they'll say things like, yeah, this is really cool. I'll definitely be back. And they never show up again. Most of the time. Yeah, it's just they can't handle losing. They're so used to being the man that they can't handle losing. Now,
sorry, go ahead.
Sometimes when those guys do come back, they end up being like really good if they can just get past their pride and just swallow it. But like some of the best guys I've ever had on my team that I currently have were those guys, and then but they stuck it out, and so now they're freaking awesome.
Well, it's funny because that personality type, when I think of arm wrestling as like a culture, it's like I compared it a little bit based on the type of people that get into it. And I think there's some truth there, but it's also not the same people, because as far as like dirty, bitter, petty competition goes, like give people some insight into the sport from that perspective, because I come from like the opposite of that. You have to watch what you say. People are extremely sensitive. It's very inclusivity based. It's almost like they're not athletes. Like if you make an objective criticism about performance, people have meltdowns. But I just remember seeing like the shit talking, and I mean, I don't mean shit talking. I mean like going out of your way to humiliate your opponent. Like it gives some people some insight into the shenanigans that go on.
You talking about in terms of like competitions or just like at practice with the boys?
Both. I know that bleeds over. I've seen how crazy guys get at competitions.
Yeah, I mean the practice, especially with my team, like we've been around for so long that those are like my best friends on top of my training partners. So we get pretty crazy with each other, and there's a lot of banter at practice for sure. Just about you sissy or this and that, or you stupid, like what are you doing, and throw drinks at each other and stuff like that, or you're doing dumb stuff on the table, because we all know what we're doing and how to kind of work the angles we need to work. But generally, if there's a new guy, we ease him in nice and slow, and we're kind about it until we get to know his personality and what buttons we can push, and if he'll stick around or not. But I mean, that's part of the thing. It's still arm wrestling is kind of half combat, half strength sport. And in the end, in the upper levels, it's mostly a strength sport. I mean, after you've kind of figured out the technique part of it, it's about who's kind of stronger. But at the lower levels, especially the beginning levels, it's just like you're trying to learn how to be combative with somebody on a table, how to compete physically against another man. And so there's this aspect of like mano a mano, like what's going on, like what are you all about? And so it's fun to talk a little crap and get in their heads. Now in tournaments, the crap I'm talking is a little more serious for sure. I definitely mean it a little bit more with a little more aggression, and that's what's fun. I mean, even last night I just made a Instagram post about it. I was like getting this itch in the back of my neck, like I just started feeling really aggressive, just out of nowhere. I just started feeling like really aggressive. I started remembering like my last couple matches and the feeling I get when I'm going on stage and there's all these people screaming, and, my teammates are there and girlfriends there and referees, and like it's for big money and all these cameras around, and like just applying my full self in my zone, doing what I love to do, that I've trained to do, and applying myself against some other monster and just throwing everything I had him and screaming in his face. Like I love that. I love competing against somebody. That's why I'm not sure if I could ever do, like strongman or powerlifting with an object like that. Because I like to look in someone's face and eyes and go at them. It's what kind of makes it the best part for me. Just applying yourself over somebody, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, and I saw I saw another clip of yours of you arm wrestling. It looks like I think I think that's always been true about you. You've always been a little aggressive. Would you say you stepped that up a little bit? Because I saw a couple where you were like, you got to win, and the face turned red and the veins came out of your neck. There's like this primal, just like, yeah.
Yeah, you save it up.
You're so gentle. You're such a gentle person, and then you see this violence come out.
Yeah, I internalized all the bad stuff for like a year until my match, and then I just let it all out that day.
That's how you.
But it's good. Just, yeah, it's I've as time has gone on. When you first start in the sport, especially with newer guys, they'll go to the first match or tournaments or few tournaments, and there's a million things going through their head. They walk up to to the table, and I think it's probably similar in like powerlifting and stuff like that. Like at first, you're going to think of everything your coaches said and everything you've been working on, your form being proper and your feet spaced out and this and that, and you might overthink and kind of turn off the aggression a little bit because you're so focused on not messing up and having perfect form. It's kind of the same thing with arm wrestling. Mm-hmm. Guys go up there and they're so in their heads about trying to do everything perfect that there's almost limited aggression or no aggression. Or guys do the opposite and they go all aggression and they just arm wrestle like idiots and they just lose because they're not thinking about what they're doing. So eventually over time you build the muscle memory necessary where now I go up there, I have a game plan, I focus on maybe one thing. Like I'll really simplify it in my head, like make sure I move my thumb to the left. Okay, move my thumb to the left, move my thumb, and then everything else is just let her rip. In my brain is just like I pound caffeine before I compete. That's my thing. So like 5 hours, those little 5 hour energy shots and stuff like that. And I go up there and I've been talking about like listening to, Amon Amarth and crazy Viking death metal and stuff in my head. And I'm just getting crazy. Like basically in so many words, just telling myself like, you're the man, you're the man, you're the man. Like this guy can't even touch it. It's not even close. Yada, yada, yada. Take out the headphones, go up there. And I'm just like ready to kill somebody and then move that thumb, move that thumb, move that thumb, move that thumb. And then I'm just as hard as I can, everything I have at the person. And then just the nerves are at all time high. And then I'm just freaking out when you beat somebody. It's so, and that's the best part, unleashing hell, like this is me. I am nice guy Derek, but it doesn't mean I can't unleash hell when it's time to unleash hell,
Yeah, and I'm a little envious of that because I mean, as much as I've been driven by competition, because I think it is vital. It's an amazing experience and it adds something to your training. But it's like it is so I don't know, sanitary on our end, because even when it's heads up, you're not looking at the guy. It's still always you against the implement. And even if you like absolutely run over somebody, it's lost in a point spread. You have to look at a spreadsheet to see how everything came up, and it's like, it's rewarding when you climb that totem pole, but there is something just uniquely satisfying about being able to look somebody in the eye as you steal their dignity from them, as you remind them of their worth on the exactly. Social hierarchy. So, exactly. So what are your like immediate goals, I guess? Who's your mortal enemy? Like, who do you have your sights fixated on that you're just trying to take down to get that next step up?
I don't have any mortal enemies. My mortal enemy is me and whoever's number one in the world. Like that since day one I got into arm wrestling. Yeah, it took a long time and a lot of detours. But even since day one, I said I want to be number one in the world. I just had to figure out how to start trying to get there. But so that's still the goal. Everything I do is in a step or preparation to trying to achieve that goal. So whoever holds that spot, which is currently Levon Saganashvili from Georgia, whoever holds that spot is the guy. That's the guy I hold myself to and want to attain to beat. Now I get compared to a lot of people because there's other people in the same climb doing the same thing in other parts of the world and other parts of the country. And so obviously my name will get bunched up with their names often. I have nothing like against them or whatever, but there's definitely people that I'm compared to that everybody wants to see me arm wrestle because this guy's also coming up and I'm coming up and they want to see what would happen if we face off. So right now, everybody always compares me to a guy named Corey West, who's a crazy athlete, right? He's 400 and some odd pounds. I think he's probably like 410 now, and he just lost a bunch of weight. Big barrel-chested gorilla. He's called the gorilla. Big old beard, giant dude. Like, dude's crazy strength athlete. And he trains with Michael Todd. He's on Michael Todd's training team. And but he just beat the number 10 guy last weekend. He just beat the number 10 guy in the world like this. And just lifted the number 10 guy in the world off the table, basically. Beat him 3-0 like nothing. And so they ranked him in the world. So in the United States ranking, in North American rankings, I'm 5th, and he is 7th. Right. And so in the world rankings, though, because he beat a Bulgarian, the 10th guy in the world, he beat him in 10th place. They use like opinion based. The world rankings are more opinion based, not like you beat this guy, you take his spot. It's not like that for the world rankings. It's like, we feel like maybe he was weak and maybe this and that. And so they kind of just put you where they feel like. So when I beat my last match, I beat the 7th ranked guy in the world, and they put me at 12th when I beat him, and then put him at 13th. They moved both of us like way down. And so he beat the 10th guy, and they put him at I'm at 14th right now, and they put him at 13th. So he's one above me in the world rankings.
You're inverted in North America?
But in North America, I'm ranked above him.
You're ranked above him.
Because I beat because the 7th ranked guy I beat was North American. And so that propelled me way up there, but he beat a Bulgarian guy. So it didn't move the North rank. He didn't move him on the North American rankings. Gotcha. But anyway, it's always me and him. Every post, every video, everything is always Derek versus Corey West, Derek Smith versus Corey West. Everybody wants to see it. And it'll happen in time. Like it's just not, like I said, I've been so focused on the number one guy and the guys that have always been there holding the same place, like the veteran guys. That's been my goal, that I haven't been looking to my right and left, the guys that are with me. I'm not like focused on them. I'm more focused on where I'm going. But in terms of a rival, I guess you'd say everybody would say Corey West. Everybody would say Corey West, but I don't focus on him.
And it's funny as a rival too, because you guys, it seems like your paths haven't really crossed. It seems like you're not really directly in each other's way.
Right.
You're just kind of occupying the same space.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to guess, like realistically on your run to the top, like how many people would you guess are between you and that number one spot? And like, what is the scale of difficulty as you climb from like 10th to 5th to 3rd to like number one?
It's so hard to say. And I wish, and you talk about spreadsheets. I wish we had these facts, right? I wish I could know specifically how strong the number one guy is compared to the number two guy, but we don't. So and arm wrestling is so style based in so many ways. Like one guy can have one cool trick that beats everybody, gets him to number whatever in the world. And then he goes against a guy who has the perfect answer for that. And then suddenly everything's out the window. And then how strong is that guy when he loses to guys that are way below him? Like it gets really complicated because it's so much styles that make matchups. So, but my next match, right, is that it's not dead set in stone, but he's already agreed to it. I've agreed to it. We're trying to find a place to do it. It was the guy that's number 4 in the world. So he's a monster, generally known as one of the strongest arm wrestlers on the planet. If I beat him, then say magically I dominate this guy, then I'm pretty sure I could get a shot at number 1 in the world. I'm pretty sure I could talk Levon into having a match with me because I would be so popular and hot, and it'd be everybody want to see it because they wouldn't know how strong I am. And I'm sure I could probably argue my way into that match and have a match with number 1 guy. But the number 1 guy recently, or last time they arm wrestled, the number 1 guy, this guy I'm going to face, the number 1 guy held him center table like a child.
Well, I remember you always had a saying, or I had always heard you guys say that a wall is a wall. Yeah. So you can't, it's like on the one hand, it's always impressive when you have that control, but it's like you can't gauge based off of the performance if they're like 1% better or
right.
like 5% better, or it's harder at least to try to analyze those variables. Because if somebody, like you said, if there's that one exposed area that somebody can exploit, they make you look stupid. Yeah. Even when in reality you're very well rounded and or whatever. So it's just like any combat sport. Like A beating B doesn't mean that A beats C or whatever. It's like you can't apply the distributive property. So where are you right now in your training? You're prepping for this, or you're prepping for something really big? Or I've
just been trying to stay off. I'm waiting to lock that in, but since it's not locked in, I'm like, I need that deadline. I need that, like, by this date, this we're gonna compete, and I haven't gotten that. And so I'm in the gym. I'm still doing general prep. I'm still following my basic like programming kind of have put together and stuff. I definitely know that there's a level I can push it more. But I'm stronger than my last match that got me to 7th place. I know that per my numbers and when I can lift in the gym, I know I'm stronger than that. It's just I'm really waiting for that thing to get locked in so I can start upping it and going more serious. But yeah, I mean, I'm in good shape. I lost weight recently, which I don't know, I lost like 25 pounds. But yeah, like I said, I'll start putting that back on shortly. And then I don't know, I'm just kind of lingering. I don't want to be, things pop up, opportunities arise. I'm still arm wrestling left-handed for fun, like meaning just going to tournaments and just throwing it in random tournaments to see how it does. I went to a tournament 2 weeks ago in Vegas and I went undefeated and won the overalls and beat everybody left-handed. So the left hand's always been good. It's done better traditionally than my right hand has.
I was going to say, I thought you were a left-handed arm wrestler, right?
I'm right-handed. It always did. The left hand was like never injured. It always did better. So right now I'm ranked, last I looked, I'm ranked 9th in North America left-handed. And then fifth right-handed now, but I've been ninth left-handed for a few years now. Or no, actually a little over a year. Sorry, like a year and a quarter. But yeah, I don't really care about it. That's the thing. I don't care how it does. I don't even care about the ranking. I just kind of want to go to tournaments and throw it in there and have fun with it. And then the right hand now, finally, at this point, finally in my career, I'm excited that it's special and I want real matches with it and to value it and to have it do certain things and face
like nobody cares about your left hand, right? Like
no one cares about left hand arm
what the
wrestling.
right can do. It's not fair.
Yeah.
So with the growth of arm wrestling and the people that have gotten into it, like I remember at the Fit Expo when I competed against Larry, it was the first strongman contest he did. And then there was Derek at the end, like recruiting him into arm wrestling. And I remember at the end, taking an opportunity, showing him some stuff. And then now, and the whole thing is kind of blowing up. So talk a little bit about like some of the opportunities that's brought in for like the athletes. I think you said you spent some time in Dubai, right? You were out there for a while. Yeah. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, as social media grows, obviously, like everybody, you gotta get on the train, especially as a smaller sport like us. Like any way we can get it out there is what we need to do. That's one of the reasons I don't ever charge people or don't turn people away from my team. Like we're too small. Any way we can get our feelers out there and get a hold of people and get people to understand us and come give us a chance, like we're gonna do. So when we have someone like Larry Wheels or someone with a big Juji Mufu and things like that, who have gotten into arm wrestling and done arm wrestling tournaments and competed, like we embrace it fully, like 100%, like just bring some eyes to us and help people see what we do, what we love so much. So yeah, when we met Larry, I saw a great opportunity there, and I was with the biggest arm wrestling channel in the world was my buddy who was standing right next to me. And he was just filming, he filmed that tournament we had. And I said, hey, like that's Larry Wheels. Like, who he is? I was like, we should try to get him on an arm wrestling table right now. It'd be huge. I remember telling him that, and he goes, yeah, let's see if we can get him on there. And so finally we talked him into it or whatever and showed him the ropes, but then, they exchanged numbers and things like that. And kind of the ball was kind of rolling, like he kind of liked it and stuff like that. And they're always looking for something else for Larry to do. That's crazy. But over time, like the next year, he trained for like a year and came back and challenged me. And we had an arm wrestling match at the LA Fit Expo. Me and Larry did, and I beat him. And then, but I got to know like his manager / cameraman, Adam Silver. And then Adam like reached out to me. I'm trying to remember how it all got set up. But there's a huge fundraiser. A bunch of arm wrestlers did a big fundraiser for me out of nowhere. Like I didn't even know about it. I told some people I'd love to go to Dubai on like a video. And then these guys thought it'd be cool just to do a 24-hour live stream and raise enough money to send me to Dubai and to Turkey. And so they raised some awesome friends of mine from YouTube. And so they raised like, I forget how many thousands of dollars on a 24-hour stream. Everybody went in there, Devin Lair, like everybody was in that stream, just like throughout the day, just talking, and people were donating money. And then they sent me on this badass journey. Went to Dubai and worked out with Larry and filmed with him. And then I went to Turkey and learned from like the #1 coach in the history of arm wrestling. And then I was there for some giant tournament they had in Turkey as well, watching that and filming that. So it was like one of the best experiences of my life, to be honest. But it's just getting the sport, and it blew up my YouTube channel a lot. I went from, like basically double the size of it from where I was at. But yeah, I mean, getting the ball rolling like that is massive, and it's super important. And so there's a lot of arm wrestlers that are putting a ton of effort into it. Like Devin Laird's pretty big now. He's up to like 500,000 subscribers, I think, or somewhere around there. And then we still have the Arm Wrestling TV channel, which is, I'm not sure if they're at 2 million yet. So we have some big channels in arm wrestling that are getting there. And there's a bunch of guys that are striving for that making it their full-time jobs, arm wrestling on YouTube and doing YouTube commentary. But I think it's the way of the future. If you want a big match and you want to, as an athlete, there's literally Adam Silver just did a podcast. Larry Wheels guy said, because Larry Wheels has his own arm wrestling promotion now. I don't know if you or people know that. He runs his own little league where it's just super matches. So one-on-one guys going against each other, but the best guys in the world. Well, anyway, if you ever want to get on that card and you ever want to arm wrestle on Larry Wheels' promotion, you have to have a social media following. If you don't have a social media following, they will not consider you. Like, end of. Like, you could be a fantastic arm wrestler, but the thing is, who follows arm wrestling? Nobody, right? So unless you're bringing something to the table and you have some kind of reason for people want to buy that pay-per-view, for a random person on the street to want to buy that pay-per-view, like, why would they have you? So they want Devin Lair, right? They want Larry Wheels. They want people that are going to bring pay-per-view views to the sport. And that's the future. It really is future. And I tell guys that all the time. You better have some kind of social media.
And that irked me pretty heavily when Larry was trying to dabble in strongman. And I talked a little bit, and I talk a fair amount of shit. I'm pretty open about it. And I catch a lot of, I get flamed quite a bit for it, because so much of like this side of strength sports, it does lean heavily towards this kind of personality type that I would call, it's the kids that, like, a lot of them didn't play sports in high school. So it's like this competitive element without what I think is like that background of sportsmanship. But there's a lot of people kind of using it as an identity, or it feels like they're trying to glob onto this because it's interesting, or, you know, it's that kid getting the sand kicked in their face or whatever. But it creates this weird, like, gatekeeping where you would think they would be super eager to get anybody involved who could potentially elevate the status of the sport. And the only thing that people would fixate on when Larry started competing, well, he didn't earn his spot. Well, I don't want people in here that are just like trying to do it for clicks or what. They had this weird like moral high ground they were trying to pull, like it wasn't authentic enough for them. And it obviously came from like a very petty place, but it was such a weird standard, because in real terms, like, that limits growth, that limits exposure.
Yeah.
I mean, let's forget about the history of the sport. It pissed me off because I've been doing this for 15 years, which is 3 times as long as the average person in it right now. And I remember where the invites used to go. I mean, the Arnold has always given invites to the best powerlifter. You have Brad Gillingham, and you have Brian Siders, and you had Andy Bolton. You had guys that were not strongmen, and they're like, but they're one of the strongest in the world. It's the spirit of the sport. Let's see what they can do. And Larry showed up. They're like, well, he's got to earn his spot. And it's like, he's an all-time world record holder, and he has this immense following that is nothing but good for the sport. It's like, if he can't do it, like who the hell could? And it was really dumb. But I see that, like, people shooting themselves in the foot. So that is such a brilliant move. It's like, as much as you might say, like, well, that sucks for the guys that don't have followings, it's like, that's not what that's there for. You know what I mean? Like, it's an arm of promotion that benefits everybody, including the people that don't have followings. So that's genius. That's incredibly smart on his part.
Yeah, we'll take what we can get, and everybody's like super supportive of Larry. That's why when he's been losing his arm wrestling matches, we're like, oh, Larry, no, because everybody doesn't want him to quit. They want him to stay with the sport. Like, keep bringing eyes, keep being with us. You know, don't leave us, type of thing. And so when he loses his matches, we all freak out. But he's doing his first tournament in like a week or two. He was going to Australia he's never done an actual arm wrestling tournament.
Really?
So he's gonna go do his first tournament.
How do you think he's gonna do?
I don't know. I mean, he's definitely. I don't know if he'll win the tournament, but I definitely can see him placing top 4 or 5 or something like that. But
how competitive is it? How big of a tournament is it?
It's the biggest tournament in Australia. They're calling it Over the Top 2 because, you know, the movie Over the Top was an actual tournament in Vegas. So they're trying to do their own one it's for like 10 grand, which is a good amount of money. The original Over the Top was for 100 grand, but the 10 grand is still a good amount of money. It's the biggest tournament in Australia right now that they're going to host. But the thing about Larry, and I sympathize, I feel so bad for him, is that, like, you get into the sport and you have so many eyes on you, and you're like everybody else when you get into the sport. You show up at my garage, you train with me for a year, no one knows who you are, doesn't really matter. You just challenge yourself. It hurts. You get your ass kicked forever, and you slowly learn. You do tournaments and you go 0-2. You just lose every match at tournaments, and you just slowly kind of work your way into it till eventually you're ready for some bigger matches. Even if you start at a high level, there's still a couple of years of you just getting your ass beat and this and that and sucking. Larry started, and there's so many eyes on him that he immediately jumped from training and learning from everybody, the best guys in the world, to immediately having high-level super matches on the biggest stage with no experience in the middle there. No tournament experience, never go. Because Larry Wheels can't lose. You can't go to a tournament and get your ass kicked. You know what I mean? You can't. Like, why would people want to watch that? You know? And so it put him in a horrible situation in terms of him gaining experience and then also, like, him always dabbling in other things and not being able to specifically focus solely on arm wrestling. Like, man, I feel for him as an arm wrestler. You know, like, that sucks, man. You didn't get to, like, sow your oats and really just kind of go have fun. Go get your ass beat. Go have fun losing and just try your best and go to the next tournament and do your best. Like, have that phase where you just lose a lot.
Was there any part of the community that kind of put a target on his back? Like, you have this guy that's, like, insanely strong and he's jacked to the tits and he has this huge following and he's walking around with his model girlfriend, and it's like he's new to arm wrestling, where, like, the vets kind of look at that guy and they're like, it's his first day, we got to take his lunch money. Do you feel like there was that, or was it more supportive than that?
There was definitely assholes. You could see there's guys that would go out there or be part of it, even on a local scale, like where he practices. You'd see guys, like, his practice would be huge and everybody would just go in to kill Larry. like just trying to destroy him. And still to this day, even if you talk to Adam Silver, like wherever he goes, if he goes to this tournament, he just puts his elbow down on the side table or after the tournament table, everybody's going to throw like everything they have at Larry, just so they can be on camera pinning Larry wheels. Like they don't care about anything else besides trying to be on camera pinning Larry wheels, because they think that's going to make them famous, right? Because some unknown arm wrestler Joe Schmo pins Larry wheels, and now he's going to be super famous for pinning Larry Wheels, who's new into arm wrestling still, right? Who's still learning. But these guys just are so thirsty in the chance of maybe gaining a little bit of clout by pinning a guy like who's new that they go all out. When really, like us experienced arm wrestlers and the veteran guys know, dude, it doesn't matter. You know, Larry's still learning. It doesn't matter beating him or anything like that. Yet, I mean, while he's still trying to learn. But yeah, there's definitely guys that go there and try to do that. It's a lot. When you get some kind of name, even for me, like, my name's obviously nowhere near Larry's, but even when I go somewhere, I know that everybody's going to pull out their cameras and everybody's going to try to pin me. If I go put my elbow down any practice anywhere, then everybody's coming for blood. Like I just went to Texas and put on a few seminars, and I'm like, here we go. I just know what I'm getting myself into. I'm like, okay, here goes, elbow down on the practice table, and then single file line, 35 people deep. All right, here we go, guys. And they're all just let it rip, everything they have. Let's try. And it's not even like training. It's not like they're getting stronger off this. Really, they're all just seeing test their metal. Everybody's seeing if you can beat me. Here we go. Like here we go around the block.
As you've gotten stronger, because I remember you had this problem before, and it just made me think of that, the line of people. How have you had to modify your training to get like good table time? Do you just prioritize a lot more time to like travel and train with better people? Are you the guy that has like 3 people with a towel pulling your arm back? Did you like arm wrestle the people in your crew? Like, how do you approach that problem?
I mean, so my current outlook on training for arm wrestling, especially for me, because I've always been the strongest guy, but it's starting to get to the level where like I need heavier resistance. And that's the one common denominator across all approaches to arm wrestling, is that everybody had heavy resistance. I don't care if you're a guy that purely arm wrestled and never went in the gym once. All you did was arm wrestle with your team. Like John Brzezinski did that, you know, Devin Laird would do those. But the guys that John Brzezinski was training with was the best guys in the world. His team was all world champions. So his table time was insanely heavy resistance. There's no way around it. It was heavy ass lifting. Then there's guys that do what I call, they try to replicate arm wrestling on a table with pulley systems and rubber bands, and they arm wrestle against that. And they just, in these like compound movements, these big arm wrestling sweeping movements that use lat, shoulder, rotator cuff, cupping, like everything's a million different motions, and they try to replicate arm wrestling when, I don't know. Either way, heavy ass resistance, right? That's the guys that make it there. And then there's guys like me where it's more a bodybuilder approach in terms of isolation. I understand what muscles I need for arm wrestling. I isolate those muscles, get those muscles strong individually, and then I put them together on the table. And so the table time for me is just meant to build muscle coordination, muscle synergy, like getting the muscles to work together in unison that I built individually. Right. So I know what I need to get those strong. Now put them on the table and just tighten each one up, understand how they all work together, get comfortable using them, and then build that. I'll also use table a little bit just to build up my joints, to pressure my joints, which is really hard to recreate in the gym. The compacted movement by leaning down your elbow on an elbow pad while having your arm torqued sideways. It does something kind of unique in your elbow. So I'll use table time for that. So sometimes I'll have someone tie a rope or rubber band around my arm and pull it sideways when I'm arm wrestling somebody. But it's not to try to get my big muscles stronger. It's more just to work on my joints and connective tissue. But yeah, I kind of abandoned so far going to practice to try to get stronger, like to just gain like muscle mass and just to get everything bigger. I've never really had the guys there. I have one guy that basically the number 2 guy in California is on my team. He's a freak of nature, but a lot of times he can't make it to practice. And even then, like, I don't know, it's the odds of injury get really high when you're at that level. Even Devin Laird, I pulled with him recently, and he goes, yeah, you're too strong for me to train with. Meaning like the odds of injury are so high because there's so much power output now that it's like I like it to be controlled. So my table time has been dialed down. That way I can have better gym sessions for me, for the way I approach arm wrestling. It's more measurable. Like I can do a strict isolated bicep curl, right? And there's a million ways, just bodybuilder.com, and there's a million different videos on how to isolate a bicep, right? And then just tailor the reps and sets, a little bit. So it's, worrying about getting it stronger. So like sets of 6, like 2 sets of 6 and something like that. And then I focus on that. So I know per the numbers that my bicep is stronger. Now that doesn't mean I'm be amazing in arm wrestling, but I know how to use my bicep in arm wrestling. Okay, and then I strengthen my brachioradialis, I strengthen my pronator teres, like I isolate these muscles and these connections, and then I go put them on the table. But I know per the numbers that those muscles are stronger. No way around it. No guesswork.
Well, that's so smart on a couple of different levels. I mean, it's the breaking apart of things and kind of building a base by worrying about each piece and then assimilating that as part of a whole into your overall performance. So it makes sure that you're not going to get weak points because you're picking everything apart already. Because I'm sure there's a lot of guys that have a way they like to do things and they can develop asymmetries or big weaknesses. So it sounds like you're taking care of that. Big problem that people have. I just started to get to the cusp. I've been kind of hurt a little bit all the time for a while, but I started to get to the cusp, especially last year, where I kind of got competitive enough to where I started to feel how the extra toll of good training took on your body. So you have this really, really weird dynamic because you always need more stimulus to keep growing, but every ounce of stimulus, because you're stronger, takes a bigger chunk out of your recovery. So it's like, how do you pace that? So the fact that you're being very surgical with your table time and then using this other approach, like pairing those two things together from the outside in, like that makes a ton of sense. And I can only imagine, especially like God, training against these giants and you're both strong as shit. You're both cranking into each other. Ego has to play a role. So you're probably more likely to just throw fucking caution to the wind. It's like, oh, like Devin, gave up ground. Now I'm going to like just crank and put him down or whatever. It's like, it's probably easy to make those ego-based missteps, but it's not surprising that all came together to kind of build you up. Would you say that like the average guy out there is as meticulous as you are? Do you feel like they just kind of have their own styles that happen to work for them, or they lean more on talent? Like, what do you think how varied do you think the approaches tend to be?
Most people, the most common one is arm wrestling. Most every arm wrestler arm wrestles often, at least once a week, if not twice a week, common. And then if they start getting in the gym, most of the time it's the crazy compound movements that try to replicate arm wrestling. That's the most common approaches you see because it just makes sense. Like, I want to be stronger at this on the table, so I do this in the gym, right? And it makes sense to them and just heavy up, get the resistance heavier. But like, what are the odds that guy's hand is the size of the handle you're using? What are the odds that the first pressure he puts is directly the pressure you're training against? He doesn't go backwards first or go up. Or what happens if your hand is up here because he's taller rather than down here? Like, there's so many variables in there that it could just completely throw your whole game plan off. There's a really well-known arm wrestler named Ryan Bowen, who's an Australian arm wrestler. And he had this thing where he was tracking all his numbers and he was doing compound lifts like that for arm wrestling. And he got 44% stronger across the board in all his lifts, which is a crazy leap. He went to this huge tournament, the biggest tournament in the world, and did extremely poorly, right, for what he was expecting. And it's just like, it just doesn't carry over all the time. I'm sure there's some carryover, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you're not getting stronger at it, but there's so many gaps and holes in my mind that I'm like, I can't do that. Because what if they're taller? What if this happens? What if, like, then you're just ill-equipped for these things. So like, I don't know, I just needed something. I tried all these approaches. I've tried all of them for over the years, of course. And it's just the only thing that ever made sense that gave me peace of mind where I could sleep at night was knowing that I could track my progress and know I'm getting stronger, where I want to get stronger, and understanding the sport so much that that it helped me move forward. Wait, was that the exact question? I went off on a tangent again.
Yeah, no. That was it's dude, it's all good. It's all there's so much information here for people to pull out. No, I get caffeinated to a certain degree and I get really focused. My attention span gets like 9 seconds. So I'm gonna call that good. I'm gonna say that was good. I forgot what I asked. What do you have coming up next? Did you say you had some commentating gig you were doing for a really big show?
Yeah. So this Sunday I fly out to Arkansas for a little bit. I'm gonna be training with Michael Todd. I'm going out to his house. He has a match coming up on May 21st in Istanbul, Turkey. There's a lot of matches. So the whole card is called East versus West. So basically in arm wrestling, there's the West side, which is basically North America and everybody over here versus Europe, right? And there's this giant pond in the middle and no one ever knows who's stronger. And because they're always ranked on doing their own thing, they don't come over here. We're ranked over here. We don't go over there, basically, for the most part. And so a lot of it's always guesswork. Like, oh, I bet you this guy's stronger than this guy. And most of the time, the Europeans are stronger than us. Not going to lie to you. Most of the time. But so there's a promoter / coach, amazing dude named Engin Terzi, who's like the Turkish national coach and one of the best arm wrestlers in history. And he wanted to see the matches. And so eventually in Turkey, he goes, you know what? I'm going to raise money and I'm just going to start flying out these guys and have these matches in Istanbul from both sides of the world. The top guys in the world, we're going to have all these matches. So he has these cards called East versus West cards. Now, this is going to be the third installment. This will be East versus West 3 coming up on May 21st. So Michael Todd has a match there, and he's going against a tall Georgian guy who is like not as tall as me, but he's pretty big dude. He's probably like 6'5", 6'6", amazing arm wrestler. So Mike wants some work with another tall guy that has a lot of power, that can use some of those angles. So he's flying me out to his house to go train with him on Sunday. Then on May 21st, Ingen Terzi wants me there. So he was trying to set me up a match on that card. It fell through. The guy declined the offer. And so Ingen said, well, I want you here either way, just to hang out and commentate. So he decided he footed the bill. Everything's paid for. And so he wanted me out there to wear the old microphone and commentate during the tournament and just give my take on things. And hopefully it'll be a good time. My girlfriend's coming with me, and we're going to hang out and watch arm wrestling and commentate. It's going to be a great time.
Derek, you have a girlfriend?
Yeah.
That's the biggest news from this whole thing. What?
I know. Dude, she's taking over my life in a great way. In a great way.
How long have you been together?
Well, I've known her for 10 years. I've been dating like 4 months. I've been boyfriend, girlfriend like a month and a half. But dude, she's all in. She's like, she helps me make the TikTok. She like books all the flights. She's on all my YouTube stuff. She's like everywhere. It comes to practice with me. She's all in. That's
awesome, man. Good for you. I'm tempted to start bringing up old boiler room stories about some of the girls that Derek has fraternized with, but I'm not going to do that. Yeah, right. I'm not going to do that. Yeah. For the sake of your current relationship, I won't. So where can people follow that? Where can they where can they follow this East versus West thing that's coming up? And then where can they follow you and all of the other relevant characters?
So everything you want to find from me is just AW Derek. It's my YouTube's AW Derek, my TikTok's AW Derek, my Instagram is AW Derek, just arm wrestling Derek, AWDEREK. After that, if you're trying to follow what's going on in the sport, obviously following Devin Larrett. You follow Devin Larrett on YouTube. He makes videos about every big tournament coming up, and he kind of will always keep you in the loop of what's going on in arm wrestling. After Devin Larrett, Ingen Terzi is his name, ENGIN space TERZI, Ingen Terzi. He's the one that runs the Turkish tournaments and stuff like that, and he'll do a ton of videos on the East versus West stuff coming up. It'll be on Core Sports. That's where it's going to be streamed. Coresports.world, I believe, is the website. So you can watch the pay-per-view there. But yeah, generally follow Devin. He'll plug in on everything. He'll keep you up to date on all the biggest things going on in arm wrestling. And if you want to find smaller things, there's websites that list like all upcoming tournaments. I think armfighter.com is a website that keeps pretty good up-to-date tabs on the pulse of the sport. But in general, we're mostly on Facebook. Most arm wrestlers are on Facebook. Most arm wrestling content and announcement of tournaments and everything like that is on Facebook. So there's a Facebook group called Arm Wrestling Discussion, and that's the biggest group we have of arm wrestlers. I run the subreddit Arm Wrestling, so r/arm wrestling. I'm the admin on there. It's like the third biggest group of arm wrestlers. We have like almost 10,000 people, I think, on there. And that's always, there'll be a ton of info in there on what's coming up with arm wrestling. But yeah, I could list a million different sources, but yeah, those are some ones to get you plugged in if you're interested in following.
And if they happen, I was going to say, if they happen to find themselves in Southern California, do you want to give some info about your crew, where you're located, how they can? Yeah.
If you're interested you're in Southern California, and you're actually anywhere in Southern California, if you can't join my team or check out my practice, I'm sure there's a practice near you. There's teams in Anaheim, teams down, a couple teams in San Diego, like 3 teams in LA. There's teams everywhere, right? So if you want to message me on Instagram, probably the best, at AW Derek, just send me a message and I can plug you in with the team anywhere, especially in Southern California. My team practices in Highland, California right now at my grandma's house. So just message me because of COVID. We were at a hotel, but COVID moved us out. So for now, we're at my grandma's house, just in the garage in the back. But I have like 6 tables, practice about 30 different people, men, women, and children, different levels, pros and amateurs, and different weight classes all across the board and stuff. But yeah, just shoot me a message and I'll send you all the details about practice if you're in the area, in the Inland Empire.
Inland Empire. That's awesome, man. Well, good luck on the upcoming events, the commentating, the preparation. Really appreciate you coming on and giving us some insight to the mysterious world of professional arm wrestling. I have no doubt it's going to get bigger, and your channel's doing really well. I mean, you're at just under 10,000 channels. You have like 3 videos up. I was all jealous. It took me like 2.5 years to get 10,000 followers. But so go ahead and follow Derek on his YouTube arm wrestling channel and on Instagram. Thanks so much for stopping by, man.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having me, man. A couple things. I still, to this day, I still structure my programming push pull. That's all based off you. Like, I remember when you wrote that out. It's still my week. It's still broken down by push days and pull days. Still, so I still follow what you outlined on that one, and then just mix in with arm wrestling stuff at the end of the workout. So that's still fully what I tell people about: push pull.
So I can take credit for like everything you do from here on out.
There you go.
Use your face as testimonial every time you pop up on YouTube.
And I tell people about your book all the time too, man. Like it's awesome. So
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. It was a little rough. You know, I've been training for 20 years. I haven't been writing for 20 years. So I'm like feverishly trying to like tighten it up. A lot of
when I'm reading it,
there.
I hear your voice when I'm reading it, which is the funny thing. Because like I just know you talk, so I'm like hearing it through your voice as I'm reading, which made me laugh a lot. So I get your jokes, I get your mannerisms, so it made me laugh.
Sense of humor and the way I tell stories and my dry, fat, and easily voice. I'm sorry you have to go through that. I should actually probably do an audiobook with like Anthony Hopkins reading it or something. That'd be a lot better.
Thanks for having me on here, man.
Absolutely, man. Everybody, thanks for stopping by and checking this out. Until next time, this is Bromley. I'll see you.